In this video, I will show you how you can make your footage go from this raw to this color corrected to this final vibe color graded. Today I'm gonna be showing you guys how to color grade in Final Cut Pro 10. This tutorial is all hands-on. I'm not just gonna tell you to mess around or play with different settings. I'm actually gonna be showing you a set-in-stone method that you can follow when you are color grading any shot. Now, this will be extremely useful for you because if you are new to filmmaking or you're just trying to step up your color grading, now you are going to learn a lot because I'm gonna be going over step by step of my color correction and color grading process, as well as clearing out some of the terms for you that you need to understand when you go out and do it on your own. But first, intro. What's up everyone, Peter here. I could show you two plugins, the built-in one in Final Cut Pro 10 and the paid one that can do magic that is called Color Finale. By the way, it has a cheaper option called Cinema Grade. In this tutorial we are going to be using the built-in one, but I will show you a trick at the very end of this video showing you why Color Finale is literally a magical and it is a total game changer. So without further ado, let's jump right in. For starters, I recommend you downloading a free plugin from MotionVFX, an amazing company, which is called Adjustment Layer. It can be useful for so many things, but right now we will be only using it for the final LUT color grading. You can find the link in the description under the like button, which by the way you could smash if you found this video helpful. It's not a mandatory at all, but I highly recommend you do this because it is absolutely free and it will make your life a ton easier when you're color grading clips, bringing them together for an overall feel of your video. Another thing I recommend you downloading is something called a LUT or lookup table. This is the secret sauce that will give your movie that cool vibe. You can find free ones, but the ones I love and highly recommend are Daniel Schiffer's and Peter Lindgren's. You can check them in the description as well. They are around 10 or 20 bucks and I believe they are totally worth it. Plus, you get to support an awesome creator. Okay, enough of the chit-chat, let's get right into the tutorial. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Santo and I make videos here on YouTube all about filmmaking, whether that be a tutorial, review or a BTS of actual shoots, sharing tips and tricks and my favorite gears. So if you are into that stuff, then I highly recommend that you subscribe and smash that notification bell as well. I can guarantee you are not gonna regret it. Let's get started. So once you've downloaded the file, link down below, you are gonna want to unzip it. Open a new Finder window, type in Movies, open the folder, go to Motion Templates and drag the new file into the Titles folder. I'm not gonna do this because I've already done it, but once you've done it as well, then you will see this adjustment folder in your titles, which comes handy because when you do your basic color corrections. But for now, don't worry much about it. As this tutorial progresses, you will understand how this works. The first step to color grading in a video is to identify which is your hero shot. Basically, this means you need to find the clip that you are gonna base the rest of the video around. Now, obviously you can make adjustments in each clip to make it work, but you need a clip that will act as your starting point so that everything else can follow that. I'm gonna be using this clip because we do have some skin tones and we have the same lighting that will be consistent throughout the clip. The things you should look for when you are trying to identify your hero shot are common traits across your clips. Sometimes you might need to choose a few hero shots if there are certain patterns, but for now, let's use this clip. So once you have the clip in your timeline, you are going to go ahead and click on the color inspector and select color board. This brings in a new color board adjustment, so the first color board adjustment is gonna be our saturation and exposure correction. Before we move on, let me tell you that this workflow works with any kind of clip from smartphone through action cameras to cinema cameras. So my main camera is a Sony a7S III and I use log footage. Without going into details, this is a flat flat color profile, which means that the image out of the camera is pretty washed out without colors and contrast, but this gives you more flexibility in post to play around with. That's why my first step when going into the color board is opening the saturation and increasing it to around 80% so it will bring back colors. And then I open the exposure tab. Now I'm briefly going to explain what each of these controls do. At the very left we have our global slider. This will affect the overall exposure of every aspect of our shot, including the shadows, midtones and highlights. In other words, the dark areas, mid and bright areas as well. There are dedicated sliders for each exposure group within this window. They are right there, and as you can guess, they enable us to get more specific because we can individually adjust shadows, midtones and highlights respectively. Again, these shadows represent the darkest points of your shot, while the highlights represent the brightest parts of your image, and the midtones is everything in between. In layman terms, the greater the difference between the shadows and highlights, the larger the contrast is going to be. Before we do that, we need some kind of guidance that will help us nail the exposure and the contrast. Final Cut has a great feature for that, using two things that are called vector scopes and waveforms. By hitting Command +7, it will open this window where you can view these scopes. I'm not going to talk much about these scopes, but the one we are going to be using today is called Luma Waveform. Basically, you want to make sure that you are on the full spectrum of the waveform scope. Do you see the numbers on the side? You want to be between 0 and 100. But again, at the end of the day, it depends on your creative taste. Today we are making it as close to real life as possible. So, here we actually get a visual representation of how exposed each part of our clip is. A general rule that you might want to follow is to bring your shadows down to almost 0. Actually, not quite touching that 0 line, because once we hit that line and go below 0, we are going to be losing data in the shadows, and we don't want to do that. As for our highlights, this is up for a debate. A lot of people say that you want to keep under 100, but I actually prefer to go up as much as I can until I start losing data. You can check this when you see at the very top of the window that the waveforms start to flatten out. That's how you know when you are losing data. So I go up until just before that begins to happen. So right around here looks just good to me. You can see that as you move the shadows or the highlights, they interact with each other. So it takes a bit of playing around with that until you get the result that you are satisfied with. For your reference, my shadows are at -7% and my highlights are at around 90%. You see the actual number on the bottom of the color board window. Now we are done with our basic color correction, and we can hit Command 7 again to close this window. By unchecking the checkbox, we can check what we have done so far. Here is the shot we started with, and after our saturation and exposure correction that we have just done. What we have achieved here is that we added a bit of color and contrast to our footage, making it a little bit more punchy and exciting. So, we are off to a good start. The next thing is to bring in another color correction effect by adding a new color wheel. The second correction is going to be our white balance correction. Now we are basically solving any color cast that we might have. You don't necessarily have to do this, but if we set the white balance incorrectly in the camera, this is where we are going to fix that. So we are going to open the color wheel and play around with the temperature slider, and going one step further, we can play around with the tint and hues as well, and for every tone individually too, if we expand each part or drag the circle around the wheels. By the way, the circles also have individual brightest level sliders on the left and saturation sliders on the right. If you feel like playing around with them, feel free to do so. One thing I noticed about this shot is that it looks a little bit cooler than I want it to be, so I decreased the temperature just a little bit so it matches my desired warmth. The difference is very subtle, but if we click on and off here, you can actually see that we have warmed up the shot. It's not quite as blue and cold as was previously. I think this clip looks pretty dope, and so I'm gonna hit Command C and copy these parameters and select all the other clips and hit Command V to paste them. Here a window will pop up asking what settings I want to paste. Now we want to paste everything, so I just hit OK. The next thing is to check the rest of the clips and do some minor adjustments if needed. This way we make sure that all of them match each other so that when we add our final grade we can nicely lay it over and all of the clips in the video will flow and not look drastically different from one and other. And done.
I'm done.
There you have it. This is how you do a basic color correction in Final Cut Pro 10, and of course you can do this simple workflow with any editor of your choice. But I know that most people want to add a look or a grade to their shot in order to bring a nice vibe or cool feeling to their footage. This is that little big detail that really ties the whole video together as a whole. Remember the free adjustment layer we talked about at the beginning? And this is exactly what this video is about, which is the second part where we will be color grading our color corrected footage. If you like this video so far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button with the notification bell as well. Like the video, tons of content coming up, and I really hope to catch you in the next one, like for example this second part of this series. Thanks for watching. Bye.